Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Our Town Creative Placemaking Technical Assistance Peer Exchange. I'm Melissa Kim. I'm the director of the Technical Assistance Program. And I just wanted to welcome Maya Herring from the NEA to say a few words.
Well, hello, everyone. My name is Maya Herring. I'm the Our Town Specialist with the NEA, and on behalf of the National Endowment for the Arts and the Director of Design and Creative Placemaking Division, Jen Hughes, I want to welcome everyone to this Creative Placemaking Technical Assistance Peer Exchange offering. And just highlight for you guys that peer exchanges are really wonderful spaces for grantees to network and learn from one another, which is just so incredibly important component of this community-based work that you all are engaged in. Also, I just want to reiterate that the NEA is working to support the field beyond just grant making, and that the Creative Placemaking Technical Assistance Program really exemplifies this approach, and that is targeted especially for you all, Our Town grantees. On that note, I did also just want to bring up and highlight some upcoming Creative Placemaking Technical Assistance offerings we have slated for this fall. These offerings include office hours next week, which is more of an open space for your questions and to engage with resource team members, and Manage Your Award webinar on Tuesday, October 18th. Please be sure to register for these events if you're interested in attending, and sign up for the newsletter if you haven't already, so that you can be kept in the loop about what is coming up next. Thanks, everybody, and enjoy the program.
So on the next slide, we are going to go over a couple of quick housekeeping matters just to make sure that we have a welcoming and an affirming experience. So these are the general guidelines. We invite you to change the name, in your Zoom, changing your name tag, and to include your first name, pronouns, and your, where you're zooming in from. Closed captioning is available, and to access that, you would go to the bottom right-hand screen where you see more, and you should see an option to access closed captioning. Note that this peer exchange is going to be recorded, and we're going to share it out on our website. We encourage you to listen deeply to each other and make no assumptions about our time here. Lastly, we encourage you to connect with each other using the chat. And you met Michael a second ago, and before we bring her back, just wanted to underscore using the chat. We think about this space of a peer exchange as an open, informal space to have conversations, and it's really designed in order for you to have an opportunity to come together with your peers and as a community of practice to ask questions, to share experiences, and to give and get advice. We see this as us offering this space and providing a container by just providing the Zoom link, by bringing in a facilitator and sharing an example or two in order to start the conversation. And then from there, it's the folks in this room that really fill it and shape the conversation. So again, it's your space, and so we really invite you to use the chat. And then towards the end of the second half, we're going to have an opportunity for Q&A. But in the meantime, please feel free to put your questions in the chat as they arise. With that, I'm going to now hand it off to Michael.
Thank you, Melissa and Maya. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Michael Pride, and I'm on the architecture faculty at the University of New Mexico. Specifically for today, the appropriate association is that I'm part of the resource team supporting the Creative Placemaking Technical Assistance Program at LISC for the NEA. And I'll be I'll be moderating or helping give prompts for this active discussion where we have the opportunity to really learn from each other. Specifically, as you know, the theme for today is around partnerships and how they can lead, partnerships in this creative work can lead to systems change. We've seen this happen in many places over the years of the Our Town program, and this venue gives us an opportunity to hear more about a particular case and then share our experiences and learn from each other, both the victories and of course some of the challenges, because we're really here to kind of overcome them and to get some of those strategies that really help move from an event to actual systems change. So with that, our grantee sharing today is going to come from RIffRaff Arts Collective, located in Princeton, West Virginia. And as their tagline says, they're committed to transformation through music and the arts. With that, I'll turn it over to Lori McKinney and Greg. My notes are all over the place. So sorry. Greg Puckett. I think Lori is leading the presentation. Greg's here for backup from his car or from the road. So with that, thank you so much for being here, Lori, and sharing your experience.
Yeah, thank you so much, Michael. And Greg from his car, he is a Mercer County Commissioner and also Executive Director of an organization called Community Connections. So hi, everyone. My name is Lori, and I'm co-founder and executive director of RIffRaff Arts Collective in downtown Princeton, West Virginia, which is my hometown. I'm a songwriter, a performance artist, a drummer and poet, a catalyst and community builder. Now, Princeton is small, population about 6,500, and a challenge is that our young people leave in droves, and I was one of them. I wanted to get out just as fast as I could. I was lucky to attend college and experience life-shaping world travel, which gave me the broadened worldview and perspective that I needed to recognize the opportunities, the beauty, and the potential in my hometown. I discovered the power of music and the arts, and I was driven to bring people together and inspire change. In 2004, we created Culture Fest World Music and Arts Festival to promote unity and respect for diversity here in Southern West Virginia, an area that suffers from xenophobia due to isolation, with the goal to build a culture of connection and understanding. And we knew that we wanted the inspired energy that we created Culture Fest to last year round. And in 2006, we planted roots in this historic structure on Mercer Street in downtown Princeton. Now, many had seen this street as a lost cause. It was abandoned and left for dead. But we saw Mercer Street as an opportunity to make a difference and improve the quality of life for everyone in our community. And we breathed new life into this building and into our block. Our headquarters houses 2 performance venues, a recording studio, a gallery, artist studios, and a music school. We created annual traditions like art parades, a countywide celebration called All Together Arts Week, concerts and festivals, bringing people together with relentless positive energy in the face of so many telling us that it was impossible. And now 2 decades later, our neighborhood is flourishing with life, with galleries, cafes, restaurants, craft beer and kombucha brew houses, tons of public art, and unique enterprises which each have a mission beyond profit. We've cultivated a supportive, collaborative scene for creatives. Artists are moving in all the time because they want to make an impact, and Princeton has become a laboratory for ideas. And while we're still surfing over the tipping point, the transformation is now undeniable. And we were able to accomplish all of this through key partnerships, one of which we're going to explore today. But first, I want to set the stage for you and show you this short video painting the picture of the energy that we bring to Southern West Virginia. Then I'm going to introduce you to one of our key partners, Greg, and explore how together we were able to make this dramatic shift. And I'll tell you about Our Town project and how it represents the next chapter of our work here. Note, this video features my original song, The Time Is Now, with my band Option 22. You can go ahead.
Never there was a time when it mattered more. Never there was a time when it mattered more. Your love and your light can open up the door. And never there was a time when it mattered more. And never there was a time when your love was called upon like this. Well, all of the signs, they beckon us to shine in the darkness. So pull your heart out of your pocket and wear it on the outside. And now is the time, now is the time. So open up your heart, open up your mind. The time is now to open up your heart and open up your eyes. Da 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 da. If they go and try and put your light out, you go and shine it brighter. If they go and try and put your light out, go on and shine it brighter. If somebody done put your light out, I wanna light it for you. If somebody done put your light out, I wanna light it for you. We are not alone.
All right. So the stage is set. We're building on this cultural infrastructure of the past 17 years of this work. Now, from the very beginning, we knew that we'd be building for years, gaining trust, and that one day we would be so rooted that we could use our voice for the true change that we want to see. And that moment has come. We've demonstrated that the arts can transform an economy, and now it's time for us to move the needle on things that matter more. We are thrilled about our Town project. We Need to Talk, a movement using music videos and docu-shorts to build bridges and catalyze community healing. So many of us local artists have written songs about issues that we're passionate about or ways that we see the world that our community really needs to share dialogue around. So we're creating these pieces with the artists, some with sweeping cinematic storylines, and we're screening them at city council meetings, on local TV, and during community conversations, where we'll hold space for the community to share stories, listen, and talk, led by trauma-informed expert facilitators. We believe that our community hearing from local voices and the powerful medium of music video will tug at heartstrings and expand minds in a powerful way. This project is going to center these artists' voices in a very pivotal moment as we emerge into this new frontier. And we're so grateful and ready for this chapter of the work. Now, at first, it was like moving mountains. And while we had the niche audience tuned in, the powers that be were just like, oh, that's just those crazy artists doing their crazy festivals and music. They didn't realize then that we were an economic development engine waiting to be tapped. But one leader did. And our partnership has been a cornerstone of the transformation. So very early on, Greg Puckett reached out. It's like he had antennas and spotted our leadership potential. He invited me to speak to students at a teen conference and my partner Robert to photograph the event. And that's how our relationship started. He lent us a projector that we needed and we ended up borrowing it regularly. And that's how we got to know each other. We recognized shared values and perspective. We agreed that youth in our area turn to negative behaviors because they don't have enough to look forward to and be excited about. The next thing I remember is Greg showing up at our annual All Together Arts Parade. He shared visions and his deep connection to Mercer Street, and he pointed to our town's historic movie theater and said, we've got to get that theater. And we did. Now, shortly after, Greg joined me at a creative conference where we learned about West Virginia Community Development Hub's wonderful planning programs. But we here at the Arts Collective were so stretched so thin all the time that we weren't able to participate. But Greg's organization had all that capacity and experience. And again, with that forward-thinking instinct, Greg offered to pay for my time organizing a team to enter the Blueprint Communities program. That was the pivotal framework. We sat down at the drawing board with the City of Princeton, the Chamber of Commerce, an architect, a banker, and the media, and together we gave birth to the Princeton Renaissance Project, a multifaceted plan for downtown development. So Greg and his organization, Community Connections, provided resources, capacity, fiscal agency, and thought partnership. Now, his voice brought a different kind of credibility to the work and a mainstream audience. I think the lesson here is that that leader had his radar up for the sparks. He spotted the visionaries and he figured out how to support us. And I believe that that is the key. Then Greg just rolled up his sleeves and got to work. You can change the slide here. We put our skills together and just made things happen. I remember coming to Greg's office for help when we wanted to paint our first mural. And he said to me, Lori, why don't you not do one mural, but do 10? And I was like, oh, Greg, you're such a big thinker. But he was absolutely right. It was the sweeping impact of those 8 large professional murals. I think it's the next slide. Click one more time. We painted 8 very large professional murals and 22 small murals in Artist Alley. And that is what made the sweeping impact that really started to turn that transformative energy about in our community. And Greg just didn't say do the work, he assisted. He provided seed funding and labor. He personally helps prep walls. He paints all kinds of facades. He restores ghost signage and paints his own murals around town all the time. You can click slide, please. His famous bucket truck can be spotted around town painting building after building. They call him Puckett in a bucket. Then that's Puckett in his bucket right there. He once got stuck in that bucket truck. He'll have to tell that in a separate story. Now, his organization, Community Connection, provides key sponsorships and visionary thought partnership on major events like the Downtown Countdown, a multi-stage music and arts festival on New Year's Eve, complete with fire dancers, ice sculptors, a ball drop, and fireworks at midnight, which you saw in that video. I love seeing him throw beads off of the marquee, the theater marquee all throughout the night. I think he really loves that. Can you change the slide there, please? I found this picture last night as I was digging through photos of Greg, and we'd almost forgotten about this. He even played a game show host in the Newlywed Game years ago in the very beginning of the Princeton Renaissance Project. During the pandemic, we created virtual broadcasts, and on New Year's Eve in 2020 and 21, Greg and I shared an on-camera dialogue reflecting on the development of downtown over the years. That was a blast. So Greg and his organizations not only empowered us with capacity, resources, backbone, and structure, he showed up and rolled up his sleeves, not afraid to be at the forefront of change with us. And in addition, the partnership and fiscal agent role he served for us offered us training wheels, which eventually enabled us to launch our own nonprofit in 2019, the RIffRaff Arts Collective Incorporated. And if that wasn't enough, Greg acted in our music video. In the first videos of this Our Town project, a lot of people don't even realize that Greg is an actor. He played a disgruntled customer in a diner scene in our music video. So the transformation over the past decade has been steady and undeniable. Our core partnership in Princeton Renaissance Project has enabled us to operate within the community in ways that we never could on our own. And the plan from the Blueprint program is fantastic. We can trace back to the original challenges, look at the strategies we implemented, and see that pretty much all the goals we set forth back then have been met. It worked because we kept focused and we kept moving. We did things organically and we let them simmer and grow. The people and team members of the original Princeton Renaissance Project came and went, but Community Connections and RIffRaff Arts Collective were anchors. Now, there are countless other ways that this partnership has operated towards progress. I'm looking forward to our dialogue and hearing from Greg's perspective about the work. Oh, and you can switch that slide again. See another photo of, oh yeah, this is Greg at our All Together Arts Week parade 1 year, standing there in the middle of his car that he bought from the artist Patch Whiskey, who painted that car. That's the end of my presentation there.
I'm just going to ask Greg if he was ready to add for a minute or two from your perspective.
I don't know if
What'd you say?
I was was going to say, I don't think I can add much else. I mean, Lori's very comprehensive in what she's doing.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay,
gosh.
thank you.
You're muted now.
Let's try that one more time. Can you hear me now? Okay.
Yes.
No, there's really not a lot I can add to what Lori said, but I think the major thing that she really focused on was the theme about collaboration and cooperation. And, thankfully, it has continued because over the last 8 years, I've also been an elected official, and I serve on the National Association of Counties Arts and Culture Subcommittee. I was working with the Americans for the Arts on an amazing project as a county leader there. And it's really been allowed us to focus the energy we do locally on a much larger scale, like these forums here. And so, yeah, it's for us, it's really about how to work together and then how we support the arts and the definition of the arts. A lot of the people that I deal with on a daily basis, they don't understand the value of the arts. They don't understand what that means. And so to do that in a political forum has been very helpful because you're changing the dialogue as we move forward. So, I'll encourage questions later, but Lori did a great job. Thank you, Lori.
That's great. I see that Michael asked how we measure the impact of the change from the partnership. And again, that blueprint plan that we created through the hubs, it was like a strategic planning program, but it's very personal. And we are able to go back to that plan and now look at the goals that we had for the downtown and actually measure the impacts through the dramatic increase in foot traffic, the number of businesses. I think when we started, the downtown was at 80% vacancy, and now we're nearing maximum capacity. It's pretty challenging to find someone at a storefront if they want one. So
our theater, although not complete, we just did receive a congressional allocation of $720,000 that's going to move that project forward quicker. And we're looking for a couple of other foundations to jump in. So our goal is to have that done hopefully around the 10-year mark. So we'll meet kind of where we thought we may be at that point.
Right. And it sounds like this plan kind of evolved organically, but that idea of having a plan and identifying the change you wanted to see in Princeton helped you kind of go back and check the list. Did we do this? All the things that we wanted to achieve. Thank you both. So that's one way to measure the impact: the foot traffic, the low vacancy rate of the storefronts, probably tracked over change, really accelerated. And I think there was a part of this that almost, I think both you, Lori, and Greg alluded to, the position of your partnership, right? With Greg having that kind of organizational resource to help advance the work that RIffRaff was doing. And then being as a county commissioner, you're able to be there at the decision-making table to help promote the work further and make that transformation that we talked about, the systems transformation. And I'm wondering if you talk a bit about how the operations or the thinking on the commission or town council has been affected by this, what I love Lori's expression, relentless positive energy.
And it's true. And it's one of those things where you have to understand the definition of what people consider the arts. When a lot of people locally, they think murals, they think music, they think things like that, but they don't understand the magnitude of what you could put into it from a fiscal responsibility. Like we just put in a $230,000 allocation in from our American Rescue Plan funds to fund a stage at our county park, because we want that to be a multi-purpose venue. We want to do other things beyond what we've been able to do. From a county perspective, working with our other neighboring town, Lori mentioned Altogether Arts Week and the partners in our other town, the Bluefield, they're really starting to see a lot of these pieces come together, and collectively, the arts is now expanding in a much more broad ripple effect. And as we continually do that, now we're starting to see greater investment. I did see a comment in there about the congressional allocation. That's a signal of trust. And when you have that trust that goes in with your congressional partners, now they start to come on board as well. And, I think it's one of the things we've said is, everything's a relationship-based process. And that's how we should treat everything that we do.
I wanted to mention another thing about that system change within the government. And you also mentioned asking what challenges come up in this work. And I mentioned the West Virginia Community Development Hub. They have all these wonderful programs. And what they do is like empower citizens, and a lot of creative people like myself. I was totally unexperienced in any realm. Had never heard the term community development, but we all did our homework, and our team just was very invested in the process. And so what happens is that people like me and citizens end up doing really professional work that might not have the capacity in our community, like a local EDA. We didn't have a local EDA at the time. And so a lot of volunteer work ends up happening, and it starts to get pretty dramatic in the sense that we're doing way too much unpaid work, I think, because we're filling voids. But then Greg was so helpful in figuring out how to get us paid and figure out how to identify where the funders are and understanding how to work with them and resource in those ways. And then also changing the perspective of local leadership to understand that they have to pay for creative labor. When we first got here, no one understood. They're like, oh, we have this beautiful wall here for you. You can have this wall, or we'll give you this wall to paint. That kind of mentality, or not understanding that, sound production needs to be paid for, or things like that. And you mentioned the congressional allocation too, and that's actually the second congressional allocation that we've gotten for creative projects. The museum that we're building in the historic district, it's actually the RIffRaff Arts Collective building a museum in our historic district, and we got a congressional allocation for that too. It's very interesting. So there's this kind of like new perspective in our local area from leadership in trusting creative labor and understanding the power of it. And Greg's voice has been huge in that conversation.
I do want to add to that too, is that, and this goes out to, people when they go to their county elected officials or cities or wherever, the American Rescue Plan funds is really essential to changing the environment that we see. And if the environment changes, so do the people, and the culture actually helps build these capacities all around it. So anybody that's online, that you can, reach out to your local county elected official and say, look, American Rescue Plan funds is all about changing the environment. That's what the arts do. So you really take that moment and go after the money. And then the last thing that I'll say is that, I had a hard time talking to my commissioners about the arts, and a project that I've been working on for 4 years, and that's lighting our courthouse. I wanted to light our courthouse for specific venues and timelines, if it's Christmas or wherever, Breast Cancer Awareness Month, light it pink. I couldn't get them to do it. And through the National Association of Counties, they are going to go green for veterans, and they're asking courthouses across the country to light their courthouse in green until November the 11th. And so by doing that, it's very hard to say no to a veteran. So use that opportunity to embrace the arts in a different cultural context.
It's another example
That's
of how
great.
Greg engaging the RIffRaff to do that work, and that's been so helpful.
Yeah, it sounds like a pretty intensive but passionate investment by your creative community helped change people's minds, or make arts and creative work more present as a solution, so that when something comes up, a park that needs improvement, a funding opportunity, whatever, now at least Greg always first thinks, how can the creatives in our community help advance this mission or this vision or these goals? I really like that spectrum that I'll get to. People are starting to post also. I asked the question of everyone, how have you measured the success in your communities? And we see from Calvin Phelps in Mississippi, the city put $200,000 to renovate the State Street Theater. But they had to go to the board several times. Yep, that happens. And others, please continue to add your thoughts. One thing is, you told your story, Lori. I think I heard really this energy from the creative community, and the visibility of that creative expression brought attention to the community and to the activity. That attention helped build a larger and larger audience. And then that audience helped boost economic development. And that seems like the hook that helped to build the trust in your community and among your electeds, funders, et cetera, to feel like they could jump in and help support and promote that work. Would you say that's the case, Lori? Did you start with this kind of goal about activating the street, getting more businesses, more life?
Yeah, and I think empowering people to understand that they can follow their vision. So I think that one person steps forth and does something bold that was unexpected and perceived to be impossible. And then other people start to realize that they can revisit that dream that they had and create it. And I think the one leads to the next, and then it's just a proliferation,
Yeah.
like a snowball.
Right. Like you couldn't have imagined where you are now. You probably didn't write that down 10 years ago, 5 years ago, but it became organic, as you described, a snowball, more attention, more support, more capacity.
I hear that. Interestingly, we did envision this, and we didn't
Oh.
we didn't think it was going to take this long. But I think especially my partner Robert, who you may have seen walking around, he's a visionary. He thinks like in the end game and then understands how to work backwards to get to that vision. And we really did sort of kind of set out with that intention, knowing that if we planted this type of seed, that this type of business would come. And the types of businesses that are here, they all want to make an impact in the world. Like for instance, there's a gourmet mushroom cultivator, and the person had a traumatic brain injury and found lion's mane mushrooms, and that was the healing that he found, you know, outside of any sort of traditional medicine, and he wanted to share that. And so he started a business called EB Fungi to educate people about gourmet mushrooms. The Blue Ridge Bee Company that you saw in the video, they're trying to save the honeybee population. They engineered a vaporizer that keeps mites away from beehives. And, you know, the Kombucha Brew House, she's really dedicated to, you know, educating people about healthy lifestyles and ways to, yeah. And so each one of the businesses all down the road, it's like a mission-based kind of like social entrepreneur energy that's attracted by this kind of creativity.
Yeah. And you probably didn't start out like walk out and say, we're here to help you be healthy. You just got people having fun, enjoying themselves. And then later comes the opportunity to bring in, as you suggested, conversations about things beyond the arts, about the life of the community and health of the community. I love that. We want to pivot to then, what role did the partnerships play? We talked about your partnership with Greg. I wonder if you could talk a bit about, I mean, even that initial burst of relentless positive energy of arts popping up all over the place and tapping into your cultural infrastructure doesn't just happen because you put up a poster and say, let's do this next week. Can you talk about how partnerships played a role in elevating, expanding that part of the project?
The thing that first came to mind when you were talking about the very beginning of the work was the trust building that occurred with us and the city. And I mentioned that the city in the beginning, they were just like, oh, there's just those crazy artists downtown. And there was a lot of like kind of years of just demonstrating that we were serious and here to stay and cared about the community. And as we built that trust, then a lot of the, you know, the leaders, they just sort of really were grateful for the work that we were doing. And over the course of time, like sitting down with the city and understanding how to like enter into City Hall, they created a community improvement commission, I think because the energy was starting to crackle on the street. And so the city realized they could create this commission, and they invited business owners to the table. And then us artists just sort of, you know, found ourselves intersecting with the city once a month. And that was a really great partnership. And then it was right around the same time that the partnership with Greg came about. So there was like this kind of more mainstream population that started to tune in. But just being open to collaboration and partnerships, like Greg mentioned, Bluefield, we would always go to open mic nights, and there was an arts collective this prolific painter named Gary Bowling. He started Gary Bowling's House of Art over in Bluefield. And there's all this weird imaginary divide between Bluefield and Princeton. It's like high school jacket syndrome, but the creative community is so collaborative just in nature. We started All Together Arts Week in order to just demonstrate and kind of send a message to the leaders about how unity and cooperation were clearly the spirit of progress. And so partnerships kind of across the county, I think were a key part of the spirit of the work, and where the momentum really kicked in.
Thank you, Lori. And in ways you answered the question I put in the chat, and just turning it around and asking everyone, how has your work changed the way people in your community think about art and community development or planning? One is people went from, oh, those goofy, crazy artists just out there being creative, right? Maybe just for themselves, and starting to see how that affected people's participation, their thoughts about your community, which then in turn changed the way they thought at the decision-making level about the arts. I invite everybody to share in the chat how your work has changed the way people view the arts in your community and the relationship to community development. Let's see.
I think
so
beyond that too, I just wanted to say that the intersection, the city opening that door for the Community Improvement Commission and giving us a way to intersect with them monthly, it's just grown over the years. And now there's just so much trust, and they understand the power of creativity and innovation, not just the arts as we define them, but they're now contracting us for various work, and they created a new economic development authority, and they have a really creative mindset. I was actually just at City Hall this morning talking with another local designer in town, and the EDA is just, reaching out to us for creative video to promote local business. So it's a way that the city is now kind of repaying the favor, because we did all that volunteer work all those years, and now they're sort of engaging with our organization to actually support our cause.
That's great. From your kind of initial contributions, your investment has turned around and to become an investment by the city, even finding structural ways to continue the work beyond individual electeds or staff, because this division is created to keep the work going, and they see RIffRaff as a resource for making things happen. Systems change.
And I think long term, I think that creative mindset's going to be long term. I think even if the RIffRaff were to go away, or if this designer that was at the table, I think that sort of creative, innovative approach to planning and development is going to stick, even in the absence of these individuals.
And curiosity, from my own perspective, did you find that through the arts and creative action, you're able to engage members of the community in these bigger conversations, or more expanded conversations about your community, people who show up that might not have otherwise participated?
You want to take that, Greg?
Yeah, I think that was the best part, is that, it's kind of as Lori alluded to in the beginning, is that, when you have some of these non-traditional partners that took things for granted, and they had a certain connotation of thought about what they saw in our community. And then gradually over that time, they started to build the trust, and they started to come to the events, and they started to be a part of it, and started being part of the solution, to where they would go after different financial opportunities to assist as well. So I think that's where we've started to see the major contributions. And then, from my perspective, we just recently had a convening back in April of an economic mobility leadership network with the Association of Counties. And we had commissioners come from all over the country. We had them from Arizona and Minnesota and, everywhere. And we had some people that flew to the event. We had people that came from like Waukesha, Wisconsin, who drove to the event. But it was great because every one of them said that the arts was the most powerful thing that they saw the entire time they were here. And when we did the eval, and we did the bubble out with the PowerPoints, and people were responding, that was the main thing. It was arts. And I think that's extraordinarily powerful to showcase.
That's great. So that's not only changing the perception of your community from the community, but also from outside. Yeah, so that it becomes part of the identity of your community now. Is
And
this,
they want to do the same thing. I think that
right,
was
of
the
course.
key. A lot of them came from rural, and rural communities can have a gigantic impact. You know, the arts in urban settings is somewhat expected and anticipated. In rural, it's about changing the mindset, and you do have some pushback. But I think the best part is that when you do have that impact, it's felt a lot deeper in many cases.
I'm really glad that the question was asked in the comments about what are our plans to survive long-term gentrification.
Right.
And I'm excited to talk about this. It's a whole other conversation that I'd love to get into sometime, but about property ownership and creating entry points for more people to own real estate. We have a really exciting project right now. It's across the street. It's a coffee shop. It used to be the music school. And the challenge was that the building owner wanted to sell the building to the highest bidder and kick out the coffee shop and bring in a sports bar. And so it was a major challenge. I actually was able to reach out to a mentor of mine who was a coach from the original Blueprint program. We had all been sharing this broader term conversation about what does it look like when more people can have a say over what happens in their community because more people are able to own property. And so the idea of cooperative ownership of real estate was this ongoing conversation. And so I was writing to Barbara, just lamenting, what are we going to do about this coffee shop? And she calls me and she says, so I've decided I'm going to buy this building. And I'm going to buy this building so that a group of owners can come together and we can create a model around cooperative ownership. I'm going to sell the owners group this building at the same price that I bought it. She's not going to make any financial return, but she created a structure. We went through a whole process. And so there are 14 people own 10 shares of the building. And it's an extremely diverse group of people from all backgrounds. And the one sort of uniting principle is that most of them would not have had the opportunity to own real estate beyond this project. And I feel myself rambling about this. I don't think that I can concisely talk enough about this project, but cooperatively owned real estate, creating entry points for more people to own property, to bring more people to the table is our strategy for avoiding gentrification. In addition, a lot of us own the arts. We came in at the ground level of the downtown, and so there's a lot of ownership of the property. A lot of these building owners, these business owners actually own their buildings, so we're going to be able to avoid a big chunk of that gentrification.
At least gentrification of the commercial buildings. Yes. And I love that. I would love to see the legal structure of that partnerships. I bet it looks like an LLC or something.
We have a sheet around it, and we would love to share the model. So it's really about creating a model we can repeat and share with other communities. So I'm happy to email that to anyone who's interested. I wonder, since the question is there about gentrification, I wonder if you've seen any impact on the residential side. Yeah, that was just mentioned.
Is interesting.
Yeah, we had talked about the commercial side of it, and there was not, because the street had been a lot boarded up, and there hasn't been like a historic population of people that lived on this street, so no one has been displaced as a result of the growth. We are seeing a lot of new movement towards creating quality housing downtown, and it's really just building by building. It's small moving, but or it's slow moving, but there are a lot of people with eyes on creating quality, affordable, multi range, like income range housing here.
Great. Yeah. And maybe the size and the pace of the change in residential market might be a little slower in a rural area, but it sounds like you guys are watching those things. And I think that's a good message, and for a partnership too, to be thinking forward, and maybe even along with your partnerships and your electeds, to think about how you can stave off gentrification. And maybe there are some ideas in the audience. We are going to pivot to try to capture more of your questions. Thank you for picking those up, Lori. I feel like I can't read today. I need the large text app or plug-in for the chat. Let's see if you can post some questions now, and I'll just watch for that. Yep, and Margie adds that they'll share the resource about that collective ownership in the follow-up email to this session. Thank you, Margie. Okay, questions? Anyone? I hope everyone's following the comments in the chat. I see from Joaquin Chief, sorry, I probably really was horrible with that pronunciation. I'm a new member to CRYP, but starting in 2015, CRYP hosted the first graffiti jam in Indian country and has become an annual event, which brought graffiti artists from around the country and the world to paint murals in Eagle Butte. I am new to the community, so as an outsider, when I first came, I was blown away, as this is not typical in rural reservation communities. It's kind of like an art oasis. Sounds a little bit like Princeton is becoming that. It's very interesting to hear about that happening in Indian country. Joaquin,
Michael?
yep. Are we going to go to breakouts?
You know, no, I was just thinking I'd be really interested to hear Calvin tell us a little bit about their experience in getting the American Rescue Plan funding, if he's willing to share.
Yeah, hi. So first of all, the city of Macomb, that we received about 3.2 million in ARPA funds. The very first thing was getting the city to understand that the money could be used for quality of life projects. So everything was presented as a quality of life project to help improve the city for all the citizens, giving all the citizens, you know, better amenities, basically. They wanted to spend most of the money on streets, potholes, and the state matched any money that went into potholes in the street and sewer and plumbing. So, you know, they were going to basically get 6.4 million if they used it all for, you know, streets, infrastructure and such. So the first thing was to get them to approve allocating. They ended up allocating, I think, 700,000 to quality of life, and then the rest to infrastructure. And then the quality of life, we came together as a coalition, the Macomb Arts and Entertainment District as a coalition, had 7 projects that we wanted to have funding for a total of about $240,000. And the only project that they funded was the State Street Theater, because the city of Macomb owns the State Street Theater. And so they were putting money into their own property, even though it's managed by the Pike County Arts Council and used by the State Street Junior Players. The city doesn't even, you know, rent the building out, but they don't even pay the utilities. Those are all handled by the Arts Council. But since it was their building, they went ahead and decided to put $200,000 into it, which is great. So at least some of our projects got funded. But yeah, it's just going at it as quality of life. They had hired a consultant who, you know, discussed like with them that this is legal, everything is above board, and you can use it for that. So they just voted that last week. So we're happy about that.
Congratulations. Baby steps. I mean, as we've heard from Lori, you start where you can, and each opportunity gained kind of leads to another, that snowball effect. And I think also both stories kind of highlight how these projects can reposition thinking around funding, make more compelling and competitive proposals for federal funding, regional funding, state funding, and support for community. And I wonder if anybody wants to talk about how, Lori, it sounds like you're so busy now, like RIffRaff's getting a lot of attention. How do you deal with fatigue, and how do partnerships play into that as you get more and more successful? You've mentioned one thing, that now the city is paying you all to do the things that you did, uncompensated before.
And it's
That doesn't make 10 lorries.
Yeah, and I appreciate the question, and the city partnerships and everything that we're developing over the years really is helping. Like the museum I just briefly touched on, but it might seem like a departure from our work, but it's also symbiotic. And with the arts and sciences being just thought brothers and sisters, it's just it works really well together, and that project is actually providing opportunities for the main body of our work. The congressional appropriation has kind of like opened doors for us as a full organization to be able to level up. And also the other answer to that question is that we are still working on that. We have got to get over it. I was sharing with someone this past weekend that we're at a growth moment where we have to figure out how to get over this hump, because like I mentioned with the hub, it sort of like created this thing where there was a lot of volunteer work happening, and now in this moment we've created the organization, and we don't yet have the full capacity to be able to manage and administrate this, where I think we're a medium-sized organization now, and so we're kind of needing to get over the hump of figuring out how to expand our kind of like upper level staffing, and we haven't figured out how to do that just yet. So we're still kind of we're struggling a little with life work balance.
Right.
Transparent.
Thank you, Lori. Yes, we might all. If anybody has ideas about that, please post them in the chat or just speak up.
Michael, I wanted to suggest that we hear a little bit more about how Red Can, the graffiti jam, changed perception.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I see that. I was trying to scan all the people to make sure they were still here. So.
Go ahead and tell us how to pronounce your name, please.
Hi, my name is Wakia Chief. So the N's are kind of silent, but you didn't do too bad earlier when you pronounced it. So you did pretty good. So I'm new to the community. I was born and raised in California, and then I moved to Rapid City, which is about 2.5 hours southwest of Eagle Butte. And I just moved here about 6 months ago. But from what I've heard is that, before, when it first started happening, people were kind of apprehensive about it. They thought it was going to promote like graffiti and vandalism, but now it's become like a kind of like people will get upset when they see us painting over the murals for the new murals to come up or to go up. And so it's really, people have like an attachment and really like have grown to accept it and see it in a different light. And I think traditionally, as a lot of indigenous cultures, we kind of decorated everything that we had, like our homes, our clothing, ceremonial objects, even like objects of like warfare were all decorated. Our horses, everything had decorations and painting and art on it. So I think that it kind of came naturally to us, and now it's just become like a sort of normal aspect of life here. But from an outside perspective, it's like, whoa, like this is really amazing to see this in a community like this. But I think it has like, uplifted the community as a whole, and there's a lot more of an interest in the community and the arts, and with like now these businesses in the community are like signing up, trying to get us to paint their building next for the next graffiti jam. So I think that's had a really big impact.
It's become part of the identity of the community, would you say, Joaquin?
Oh yeah, definitely. It's definitely become part of the community, like the identity, and also like organizations and just people from other reservations. Like I'm enrolled in Pine Ridge, which is a little bit south of Eagle Butte, but there's tons of people that want the same kind of thing. It's inspired a lot of people in different communities like our own to emulate it or to do the same thing in their own community, to have these kind of murals and art. So I think it's had not only an impact in this community, but like at large in Indian country, it's had a big impact as far as being inspirational and giving people ideas of what they could do to beautify their own community. Since a lot of reservation communities have a lot of decrepit buildings and are run down and don't have like a lot of art. But I think that, you know, this is a good opportunity for a lot of these communities to bring new life into their community.
That's great. Do you see your tribal government investing in this, or, you know, some kind of change at that level yet?
Tribal government is kind of tricky. They're kind of notorious for like corruption and things like that. So CRYP isn't funded by the tribal government. So this is like more a community, people in the community reaching out to us, asking us to paint their building, and then we receive funding from grants. So I think it allows us to operate independently from tribal government. We had a visitor, a group that came, and one of the main leaders of the group had said something that was like really interesting. He's like, you know, there's people who do little with a lot, and then there's people who do a lot with very little. And he was like, this is an organization that's done a lot with very little. And, you know, tribal governments get these huge budgets and then they don't do much. They kind of just, it's notorious for like nepotism and money laundering and stuff like that. So I think, you know, it's inspired other grassroots organizations like our own to do the same thing, and it just shows them that it's possible to do it without the help of tribal government if they're not necessarily being willing to support those kind of efforts.
I like the way we tend to think of systems change as somehow relating directly to government. And your example shows the ways that your community organizations can step in and create your own kind of power structure and infrastructure to support your community. And that systems change is happening at your capacity, you know, with your capacity and within the community itself, which is where the investment really is, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks for asking me to speak.
We'll have you back. Thank you. There's Sandy. I'm not sure where I see. Margie, you were pointing me to Sandy?
I just thought, Sandy, did you want to share something with us?
I can't see the people.
Your mic is on.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize the mic was on. I'm sorry. No, I'm listening. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
No worries.
Thanks for watching. I have to change my screen view so I could catch those. Anybody else want to add on? Let's see, we have, we've heard a little bit about how some organizations have changed because of their partnerships and the projects, gaining more visibility, more ability to attract funding to do more. I wonder if anybody can speak to the question about how you think about additional partnerships. And so this is the question: is there any interest within your organization or within this room in pursuing other partnerships, arts and community partnerships outside of those you already have? Anyone? You can just do a thumbs up if there is. How about that? Thumbs up if there is, thumbs down if there isn't. You can use your reaction button down at the bottom. Yeah, I'm seeing a few thumbs up. Maybe that's some of the, oh wait, I can't see all the pages. Everybody. Yeah, just a few. Anybody want to speak to that? Calvin?
Yeah, I was just there's a program that we've been working on. It's teaching. Okay, it's an economic development program, and I put it in the notes. South Arts cross sector impact grants. South Arts funds a lot of organizations, well, in the South, and the impact grants are to cross sector are to bring two different types of organizations together. So our application is to work with a homeless shelter here in town. What we would do is set up a multiple studios, pottery, woodworking, and do job training through the arts, really, for the people who are experiencing homelessness at the moment, and help transition them out of the shelter. This like manufacturing industry would go back to support them. I guess we put in the letter of interest, and they did invite us to apply for the grant. So we're trying to move that program forward. But we changed our mission a few years ago so that we do a lot more community development. And I've spoken to a lot of people, like Jack Fornish with, he's out in Cuyama Valley, California, funding opportunities that generally go to community development organizations. If we position ourselves more as a community development organization than a contemporary arts center, which we're a contemporary arts center, it opens up a lot more possibilities for the things that we want to do. And he's always said, like, when there's an application and it says, identify your community development person, just put yourself in. I mean, if you're out there doing stuff in the community, community developer, right?
Right.
So,
yes.
Anyway.
I love that example of essentially restructuring so that you have the power to do more. I think in Princeton, there was that example of creating new agencies. Calvin, your example in Mississippi is actually converting your own organization so that you can do more of the work you want to do, and maybe work that we wouldn't immediately associate with an arts organization. Yeah. Margie, it's encouraged me to tell my Our Town story a little bit, because we're talking about partnerships and systems change, but back in 2013, and I don't know what year that was in the Our Town grant program. I think pretty early. I co-direct our community design center here at UNM, and we thought, yeah, we want to go after that project. I forget what our idea was. We'd like to get that funding. And as you know, I think it still stands that your local government has to be a partner or to sponsor or to support your application. So we reached out to the mayor's staff and asked if we could, share our proposal so that they could support us. And we got a meeting, and we showed up at the meeting, and there was a large conference table and a bunch of people around the table, and it was all the people that had a great idea for an Our Town, or an idea for the Our Town grant program. And the mayor just asked us each to share our ideas, people we did not know at all before. And at the end, the mayor says, well, wouldn't it be great if you guys could figure out how to apply together? And so, as Margie puts it, a partnership born out of a mayor not wanting to choose. And so we had a pretty intense month or two of meeting each other, getting to know each other, and ultimately partnering and having a successful application for the grant. And then, kind of speaking of unlikely partners, yes, we had other creatives, Little Globe Arts Engagement Organization, and Story of Place Institute, which was partnering with them to tell the story of this place along Route 66, but also a MAFCA, which is our flood control authority. We're like, flood control. Well, we'll just keep doing it. And in the end, the Flood Control Authority was kind of a background, occasional touching in partner, but always with the issue of trying to deal with what is probably happening right now as it's raining, the areas in the city that were subject to combined sewer overflow and flooding and things like that. So in the end, this was back in, I guess, 2014, Margie was here for our big, most visible event called ID Live for the International District, a 2-day scattered site block party, maybe, lots of things, and ultimately identified a particular site to be a really good location for flood control, really visible along Route 66, and a great location for a new, beautiful 21st century public library branch. And so that library just opened, what was it, a couple months ago, Margie, I think, with our whole project was called Stories of Route 66, the International District, a focus of one neighborhood along Route 66. And so there's a story garden at the library, which kind of presents some of the stories and things that were shared during our 2 years under the Our Town grant. And there's what functions as a detention basin, but looks a lot like a park. And it's a great improvement over our full and half blocks surrounded by chain link, big holes in the ground. And some of us have continued to work together. I'm still working with Little Globe now. And the city of Albuquerque actually changed its public arts program to include temporary installations. They were kind of committed to the traditional, here's a corner with a statue and a painting over here and whatever. And now they can actually fund temporary projects. Has anybody, so Calvin has partnered with an agency whose focus is really around addressing homelessness and alleviating homelessness. I wonder if people in the chat could share some interesting, maybe unlikely partnerships, partners, or issues maybe have come about since your visibility has raised. You guys are quiet. Did you just get started? What would you like to do? If you could partner with anybody in your community who's not currently your partner, just put it in the chat. We promise we won't tell. Just put it in the universe and I think it'll happen. I know you guys are thinking. We'll give you 30 more seconds and then we'll do a waterfall. Type, but don't hit return. Have you ever seen this before? So you type into the chat, don't hit return until I say go. All right, I hope this works. Just imagine, who would you partner with? Would you partner with are you dreaming of partnering with your flood control authority? I'm dreaming of partnering with, and Margie knows this is a nemesis here, is DMD, the Department of Municipal Development, and they manage, control, have all the power over the, Calvin, you weren't supposed to hit return yet. Okay, go ahead, everybody. Hit return. Yes, fantastic. Okay, we've got Snoop Dogg. Public schools. Oh, yes, absolutely. The police. The non-collective. Wakian, can you tell us what the non-collective is?
Oh, it's NDN. So That's
Oh.
Indian Collective
Oh,
and Rapid City.
sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
I need different glasses or different screen. I don't know. Thank you. Stacy says, I'd love to partner with our state folklore or agency and our local museum of natural and cultural history. Very interesting. Amy would like to partner with the 5 Points Art Gallery. Sounds like another arts organization. And Morgan works at CRYP. Oh, yes, with Waukeen. And I think it would be cool to partner with the other nonprofit in our community for bands to see how we can band forces. Great idea. Make that call later today. And Anne says the transit system. Cool. And Charmaine would also like to partner with Snoop Dogg, whose extended family is from Pike County, Mississippi. Is that how you came up with that, Calvin? Because I said somebody make that call, make that call. I challenge you each to within the next 14 days, make an initial attempt at contact with that potential partner.
We also have Britney Spears too. So
Okay. Well, are you going to try to do both in the 14 days? Yeah. You can do one and Charmaine can contact the other.
we're already working on Snoop, so we'll just go with Snoop.
Okay. Any thoughts about this? I think, was it in Cleveland? The partnership with the transit system and a new like light rail line, and they use the arts to help people get excited about it even during construction. Performances, dance. Margie, do you know what I'm talking about?
That's the Irrigate project, which was in Minneapolis, St. Paul. Yeah.
It was Minneapolis. I was going to say Minneapolis, and I was like,
But
no.
lots of places have done transit projects of one kind or another. And since you called on me, I'll just make a plug for the fact that lots of places are getting infrastructure money, and you can use infrastructure money to do planning and engagement that artists and arts organizations are great at doing, in addition to the more kind of natural things you might think of, like incorporating art into transit stops, et cetera.
But actually being upfront and being part of the planning process and make this as creative a process as it is practical or functional or
and a way to reach
technical.
with an easy on-ramp, just like you were talking about. I think Greg said, or somebody said, you don't say to people, come out and we'll talk about health or transit even necessarily, but it's a way to reach communities to get them involved. And artists and arts organizations are often super creative about knowing ways to do that local government hasn't tried before.
It's true. When we were contracted to help think about our latest transit project, we wanted to talk about health, or through different conversations, identified food, and I don't know. We wanted healthy and equitable transit-oriented development, and food was an issue. And one of our now reoccurring partners that I didn't know about before, Together for Brothers, said, in this particular community that we wanted to have a conversation in, they're not ready to sit down and talk about planning, but if we had a meal together, that'd be cool. And so we did that, and we had 3 or 4 generations all sharing a meal, making zines and talking about how they think about food, what they love about their neighborhood, but in a way that was not a planning meeting.
I just kind of want to add to the conversation. So I'm new to the group, but our organization has already been working with others in the community.
Where are you, Jennifer?
I'm in Juneau, Alaska. And so they're connected with the revitalization of the Auk district, which was formerly known as the Willoughby district. But it's all part of the picture of not only decolonizing, but revitalizing culture. in the areas. And so what I'm hearing a lot of is a lot of words that actually tie into the efforts that we're making in that project. And so one of the things that I keep trying to bring to the table in these conversations, because I'm also the arts education director, so I work on culturally responsive education. And when I hear things like systems change, I'm thinking of it in terms of decolonizing. Like a lot of these things that we are undoing and redirecting are all colonial practices. And one of the biggest impacts of colonization was the detriment to our culture. And one of the most important questions that I have been constantly mulling over since I heard it posed in another group was, what would an Indigenous library look like? Because we didn't have a written language. So what would an Indigenous library embody? What would you find in there? And when I think of that, because the message that I keep trying to bring to any space that I'm working in is that arts is the way of Indigenous education. Arts isn't a way to embellish or enhance education. It has been the method, the primary method of educating and passing on knowledge generation to generation. So when I hear these conversations that are trying to get at the importance of art because of all of these different things, the other side of that conversation is the reason why the arts have been harmed is because of colonization. Arts wasn't taken seriously. It wasn't considered sophisticated. So in the minds of colonial society, the presence of books is the evidence of intelligence and sophistication, whereas the lack of books has been like evidence of lack of sophistication, lack of intelligence. Whereas when I look at the perspective, because arts was our method of teaching and educating, we were able to do so many things. Because I remember we made a joke amongst my friends because he said, what do you think happened when the first like whaler stood on the beach and said, I'm going to get that whale? And I was like, I'm going to one up you. And what do you think happened when that whaler stood on the beach and looked at the whale and said, I'm going to get that whale with a stick? Like we mastered our natural world. And so we've mastered certain things in a way outside of colonial society through the arts. And one of the conversations that we've been having, like surrounding poetry out loud, is that when you have something that embodies the emotional side of the story, whether you're talking about history or you're talking about the human experience, because you're bringing in that emotional element, you're also kind of solidifying the reason why either a practice or a skill or a custom within a practice or trade that you're performing is important to uphold. So when I hear these conversations, I really urge people to start looking at place-based ideas, drawing from and revitalizing the Indigenous representation in your area, because that's going to be your strongest element of centering the arts and proving that not only is arts an important element of society, but it's restoring the idea that arts is the method in which you keep the mind, body, and spirit connected through all of the efforts that you're making. And I think that when we leave out the Indigenous representation in the arts, we are participating in a sense of erasure, as well as not recognizing how important the arts is to a community. And like, I just really urge people to consider those things and center those in your efforts.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. That's really a powerful way to close our session today. And I'm about to run downstairs to my department chair and ask him that same question about what would Indigenous library look like. He's enrolled Oneida. He's the only Indigenous person heading an architecture program in the country. So I think he would, yeah, it's definitely. The ways, and also about storytelling, the power of storytelling to communicate, to educate, and to build passion and commitment for your community. So thank you very much, Jennifer. Do I turn this over to Melissa? Thank you all
Yes,
so
hi.
much. This has been wonderful.
Thank you, Michael, and thank you to Lori and to Greg and to all of you for just being such active and engaged participants. I think this was just a fantastic conversation, and I look forward to more opportunities to meet you, to talk with you, and we have a couple of opportunities coming up, and if you pull up the slide deck. Oh, I think I'm doing this a little out of order, but that's okay. Just wanted to remind folks that we offer one-on-one consultations. And so Margie has put in the chat or she will put up in the chat how to sign up for a consultation. And that's an opportunity for you to meet with me or Margie, and we would just chat and hear about your project, hear about what's going on, and brainstorm ways that we might be able to support you and also connect you with one of our fabulous resource team members, and to be a thought partner, to help you with a specific issue, to help you just to think aloud and iterate your project. We have office hours coming up on Wednesday, October 12th. And it's going to be real informal. Like, we're just going to open up the chat room and hope people drop in. So please, if you are available, then please drop in. And Margie has put in the chat how to sign up. And then, as Maya mentioned up at the top of the session, the NEA is hosting a webinar that's going to help you with your grants, contracts management, and we'll talk a little bit more about the TA program there. So thank you again. This has been just such a great conversation. We wanted to close out with this very quick 2-question exit poll, because your feedback is very important to us, and we are always trying to improve our programs to make them relevant and useful to you. So thank you again, and we look forward to seeing you at an upcoming event or at a consultation.